Governor Wes Moore convened the state assembly today to deliver his roadmap for improving life in Maryland and bringing it back from the brink of financial ruin. Mariah Jalad is in Annapolis with more.
The easy decisions are done. They're off the table. We only have difficult decisions ahead.
Maryland is being tested, but it's time to confront those issues head on. That's what Governor Wes Moore said today in the State of the State address, where he laid out the multiple crises Maryland is facing.
We are being tested by a historic fiscal challenge, the likes that we have not seen since the Great Recession. And if that wasn't enough, we are now being tested by a new administration in Washington that sows uncertainty and confusion and chaos. We have seen the beginnings of a trade war, the shutterings of federal agencies, and thousands of workers laid off.
Governor Moore made it clear to House and Senate members today that the storms he's been predicting have made landfall, but it's up to them to steer the state back to prosperity.
And in this moment, we must marshal the courage to move in partnership to build a state where our economy is growing, to build a state where our people are protected, to build a state where our children are no longer being born into poverty, and build a state where Maryland becomes the standard of what abundant opportunity actually looks like.
One of the governor's routes to that future is investing in the state's economic drivers, including the Port of Baltimore, whose new bridge design was unveiled just yesterday.
Maryland is a bridge between America and the rest of the world. And that is why this year we have proposed new funding for a transformative project at Trade Point Atlantic. This work is going to increase the Port of Baltimore's container capacity by 70%, create more than 8,000 jobs, and generate $1 billion of private investment.
The main factor in Moore's plan to close the nearly $3 billion budget gap is raising taxes for high earners, which Republican members of the delegation are less than thrilled about. But the governor said those increases are necessary to fund essential services.
As someone who will be affected by this change, I'm okay with paying a little bit more if it means that we do not have to lay off firefighters or police officers.
The governor announced the launch of a national campaign to attract more teachers to Maryland. He also promised that the blueprint for Maryland's future would be implemented effectively, but he did say it needed to be revisited and funding adjusted. That's been a major point of contention in getting his budget plan passed.
Cuts to the community schools, I think, is a non-starter. Community schools hold our most vulnerable children, our lowest income kids, and so we should be uplifting them and supporting them, particularly given the current federal administration. I do not support cuts to community schools.
It's all a heavy undertaking as the state continues to worry about the future for its federal workers and as funding is on the chopping block. But that's why the governor says it's so important for the legislature to come together.
To meet the moment and to prove that we can stare down our greatest challenges knowing that we won't flinch, the challenge will.
These are fundamentally the same pillars that the governor laid out in his budget proposal earlier this year, but just as it was then, it's up to both chambers of the assembly to push his agenda forward. From Annapolis, Mariah Jalad, CTV News.